The night before her wedding, Amara stood in the doorway of a bedroom she never imagined she would enter, clutching a wedding ring in one trembling hand and fighting back tears with the other. What she saw inside shattered the last piece of trust she had left in the world. Her fiancé, Daniel, the man she believed would finally give her the family she had spent her entire life longing for, was sitting on the edge of the bed with her stepsister, Vanessa, far too close for any innocent explanation. Vanessa's hand rested on Daniel's shoulder, and the moment Amara stepped into the room, both of them froze. But the most painful part was not what Amara had caught them doing. It was the look on Daniel's face, the look of a man who had been caught, not a man who was sorry. If you believe that kindness, second chances, and a good heart can change someone's life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories. Amara had grown up knowing what it meant to lose everything. Her parents died when she was only 8 years old, leaving her with nothing except a small photograph of her mother and a faded blue dress that had once belonged to her. Her father's relatives refused to take her, and eventually she was sent to live with her father's widow, Margaret, who later remarried and became the stepmother Amara had no choice but to call family. Margaret never openly treated Amara like a daughter. She treated her like an unwanted responsibility. While Vanessa, her biological daughter, received expensive clothes, private lessons, and constant praise, Amara learned to survive quietly. She cooked, cleaned, worked part-time after school, and saved every small amount of money she could. Yet despite everything, Amara remained gentle. She believed that being hurt did not give her permission to hurt others. Then she met Daniel. Daniel was not a billionaire or a prince. He was simply a hard-working young businessman who seemed to notice the things everyone else ignored. He noticed when Amara was exhausted. He noticed how she always gave the better portion of food to someone else. He noticed that she never complained about the family that constantly made her feel invisible. Their relationship began slowly, and for the first time in her life, Amara believed she had found someone who truly saw her. When Daniel proposed, Amara cried for hours because she thought her dream had finally come true. She thought she was about to become part of a family where she would finally belong. But Vanessa had watched their relationship from the beginning. She had always believed that Amara had taken everything from her, even though Amara had never wanted anything that belonged to Vanessa. When Daniel chose Amara, Vanessa's jealousy became something darker. She began appearing whenever they were together, pretending to support the wedding while quietly planting doubts in Daniel's mind. She told him Amara was too emotional, too poor, too dependent, and not sophisticated enough to stand beside him. At first, Daniel defended his fiancée. But slowly, Vanessa discovered the weaknesses in his character and began exploiting them. The wedding was only one day away when Amara noticed Daniel behaving strangely. He had become distant, avoided her questions, and disappeared for long periods. That evening, Margaret sent Amara upstairs to retrieve some jewelry from the guest bedroom. As Amara walked down the hallway, she heard quiet voices coming from the master bedroom. Her heart began pounding. She recognized Daniel's voice. Confused and frightened, she pushed the door open. There they were. Daniel immediately stood up. Vanessa remained seated on the bed, her expression changing from confidence to fear. Amara looked from one face to the other, hoping desperately that there was some innocent explanation. Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. Vanessa finally stood and tried to approach her, but Amara stepped backward. She held up the engagement ring in her palm as though it had suddenly become unbearably heavy. She did not scream. She did not slap Vanessa. She did not throw anything. Instead, she quietly asked how long they had been betraying her. The silence answered before either of them could. Daniel finally admitted that he and Vanessa had been seeing each other secretly for months. He tried to explain that he had become confused and that the wedding had made him realize he was unsure about his feelings. But Amara understood immediately. This was not confusion. It was betrayal. The wedding dress hanging in her room, the invitations, the flowers, the promises, every sacrifice she had made, all of it suddenly felt meaningless. Then Vanessa said something that made the entire room go silent. She claimed that Amara had always been lucky because people felt sorry for her. She accused Amara of using her orphan story to gain sympathy and said that Daniel deserved someone more confident and successful. For the first time, Amara allowed herself to cry. But instead of begging Daniel to choose her, she removed the ring from her finger and placed it on the table. She told him that she had spent her whole life believing she had to earn the right to be loved. She had worked for affection, sacrificed for acceptance, and stayed silent whenever people treated her unfairly. But that night she finally understood something: real love would never require her to compete for dignity. Amara walked out of the room. The next morning, the wedding venue was decorated with white flowers, but there was no bride walking down the aisle. Guests arrived expecting a celebration and instead found an empty altar. Daniel and Vanessa were nowhere to be seen. Margaret was furious, accusing Amara of humiliating the family. But then Amara entered the venue wearing a simple cream-colored dress, not as a bride, but as a woman who had finally chosen herself. She stood before the guests and calmly told them the truth. No screaming. No revenge. No attempt to destroy anyone. She simply said that sometimes the most painful betrayal becomes the moment that saves your life. Months passed. Amara moved into a small apartment, returned to school, and expanded the little catering business she had started while working to support herself. At first, it was difficult. She cried sometimes. She missed the future she had imagined. But slowly, she discovered that healing was not about forgetting what happened. It was about realizing that what happened did not define her worth. Then something unexpected happened. A local community organization discovered Amara's story and offered her a chance to manage a program that provided meals and job training to young women who had grown up without stable families. Amara accepted. She used everything she had learned from her own struggles to help girls who reminded her of herself. Years later, Amara stood in front of a room filled with young women and told them that being abandoned does not mean being worthless. Sometimes the people who leave create space for the people who truly belong in your life. Daniel eventually lost the business opportunities he had depended on after his dishonesty became public. Vanessa's relationship with him did not last either. Their betrayal had been built on jealousy and selfishness, and once the excitement disappeared, there was nothing strong enough to hold them together. Amara never returned to either of them. She did something far more powerful. She forgave them without allowing them back into her life. And one evening, years after the wedding that never happened, Amara stood beside a group of young women who had just received their first paychecks. She looked at their smiling faces and remembered the frightened orphan girl she had once been. For the first time, she realized that the family she had always wanted was not necessarily the family she was born into. Sometimes family was created through kindness, loyalty, and people who chose to stand beside you. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe so more stories like this can reach people who need hope. And before the story ends, comment, "I choose my worth," if you believe no betrayal should ever make a good person forget their value. Amara once thought losing Daniel meant losing her future. She later discovered that she had not lost her future at all. She had simply been freed from a future that was never worthy of her. The girl who entered that bedroom with a broken heart walked out carrying something far more precious than a wedding ring. She walked out with her dignity, her courage, and the understanding that sometimes the greatest heartbreak is not the end of your story. Sometimes, it is the moment your real story finally begins.